Welcome to the latest episode of Five on the Floor on the Five Reasons Sports Network. Thanks for joining us on your favorite podcast app. We're now on Red Circle instead of Podbean, but still on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and the Five Reasons YouTube channel. Make sure you like and subscribe there for all of our other content, as well as fivereasonsports.com. You don't need to subscribe to that one. There is no paywall. Just check it out for all the latest written content. Also, check out the great sponsors of the Five Reasons Sports Network. Our friend Nelson, big Miami Heat fan, big fan of the podcast. Reach out to him if you need C-arm equipment, okay? He's at Mobile C-arm and Staffing Services. They rent C-arm equipment on a short and long-term basis to hospitals, surgery centers, chiropractic offices, and pain management offices. They also got cadaver lab courses where the medical device companies set up a lab to showcase their products to surgeons who may not have used them before. So again, they service office-based procedures, pain management offices, chiropractic offices, and cadaver courses. And again, they rent the C-arm equipment to an office. And they also send out an x-ray technologist to run the machine. So they can go through all of this with you. Just go to the website. It's simple. That's the letter C-armandstaffing.com. That's C-armandstaffing.com. Fill out the form. Nelson or someone on his team will get back to you. You can also reach out to him directly at 561-891-9620. That's 561-891-9620. Again, it's C-armandstaffing.com. And now, tonight's episode.
Down the bitch gang. Yikes. Five on the floor, ride for my dogs. Where here's the thing, you can check the score. Hustle hard, couple scars, wearing bubble frauds. Just like Butler said, you in trouble, y'all. Kept the floor playing, got it all banned. Y'all seen the block, stop with one hand. And Pat we trust, it's power, have the guts. We're here to bring the heat, y'all can hang it up.
Welcome to Five on the Floor, a daily insider show on the Miami Heat and the NBA, featuring Ethan Skolnick, Greg Sylvander, and Alex Toledo, plus others from the Five Reasons Sports Network.
All right, Ethan Skolnick back on Five on the Floor. Here's today's floor plan. I've got Greg Sylvander. You can follow him at Greg Sylvander. I've got Brady Hawk. You can follow him at Brady Hawk 305. Make sure you check out the episode I did with Greg yesterday where we go through what would be the trigger to change the course of this season, which feels a little stale right now. We got a lot of feedback from that episode, so you might want to check that one out. We went a little longer than usual as well, which we do sometimes on those narrative episodes. We're going to keep this one tight and bright. We got Brady here. We got one simple question, okay? This is not complicated. Why the hell can't the Heat shoot anymore? Because last season, they shot the hell out of the ball. Okay, I'm sorry for the language here, but they did. They were a really good shooting team. That's what carried them offensively. They had good spacing. They had plenty of shooters on the floor. They took that into the playoffs. That carried them when they didn't have Bam for part of the season, when they didn't have Jimmy for a lot of games, when they didn't have Kyle for a lot of games. They still shot the ball well. Like, guys shot above their career means for the most part. They maintained it. They made shots in big spots. Then the playoffs started, and everybody tanked from the outside. Like, nobody shot the ball well anymore. And that, unfortunately, has carried over. In fact, it's worse. Like, I'm watching the game against Portland, which we were all at. And Brady and I were at, along with Alex. And I'm sitting there, and I'm just like, boy, that's an open look, miss. That's an open look, miss. Like, this isn't like, this is simple stuff. Like, you get an open look in the NBA. You're a competent shooter. You make a good percentage of those. They're not. Brady, why?
I have a good way to characterize this, because as I just clicked on some of the numbers, I just saw that Dwayne Dedmon is shooting the best percentage from three on the team. And again, obviously a much different volume, but that's a problem. Like, that's a very big problem right now. If I'm looking at it, that he's shooting 40% on 1.1 threes a game. And obviously they're just not shooting it well. Like you're saying, like, I don't even think the process has been that off. Like, yeah, I think the offense as a whole has had certain problems that they need to touch up. But in terms of generating decent looks, I don't think that's been a problem. It's just been knocking them down specifically. In terms of the numbers, I was looking at something earlier that you just hit on it. They were very, very good last year in three-point shooting. They led the league in three-point percentage. They led the league in just spot-up shooting, points per possession of spot-up shooting in general, which they are now 20th in shooting in three-point percentage and 19th in the spot-up points per possession. The other thing that goes hand in hand with that is last season they were 5th in paint touches, which means when you have gravity inside the lane, guys can help off. They begin to help off the outside shooters. You're kicking and they're hitting. They were 5th. They are now 25th. Like, that is a very big drop off. When you're talking about the only difference is losing PJ Tucker, who was not a paint touch guy. I'd say I will give him the credit to say he was part of that spot up shooting, because there was big portions of the season where he was shooting the ball really well in terms of spot up shooting and in that corner. But he's not the one that's shifting it this much. Like, PJ Tucker is not making the difference from going from 5th to 25th and 1st to 20th. Like, that's not what's happening here. So it's just a weird scenario we're in, because then you start looking at some of the numbers. Like, you have Tyler shooting 38% from 3, and obviously on high volume, you'd probably expect it to be around there. You go down to a guy like Max Strus shooting 38%, and obviously he's shooting on a crazy amount of attempts. And I thought obviously we all agree that he's played really well, especially shooting-wise, because he's hit big shots. And then you get down to Kyle, who's kind of getting his number back up there at 35. I thought Gabe Vincent, being in more of an off-ball role, I thought we'd all expect him to shoot a little better. He's at 30%, and I feel like he's missed just a lot of good looks in general. Duncan has had a lot of great looks. Like, he's at 34% shooting, and we talked about the other night. Like, the shots he's getting is not what he's used to in previous years, where it's like 2 guys at his face flying off a handoff. It's kind of like settling in the corner, helping out to Jimmy on a drive, and it's a kind of a missing look. Like, that's kind of what's happening there. And then the other element, and I know we're going to get into this soon in the Caleb Martin pod, but he's shooting 30% from 3. And when you look at historically in the Heat's kind of starting 4 position next to Bam, they need a high percentage there. Like, they really do. They need a spacer that is legitimately a spacer that's going to knock down that shot anytime you help down. And we saw even going to the iffy types in Jay Crowder, we saw what happened to their offense in certain portions of the bubble when he was shooting that. What happened in the regular season this past year with PJ Tucker was that. Like, there's always that, or Kelly Olynyk when he was the 5, or Myers Leonard, he was the 5, and they were shooting that. It feels like all these little elements just add into the fact that there's just a drop-off here, and it doesn't help that they don't really have a go-to in terms of their team. Like, it's not that they're dominating defensively and we're seeing slippage offensively. It's just a lot happening at once, and it's just hard to focus, I guess, on one thing.
Well, I know we all follow Simon Sterling on Twitter. He tends to come up with some pretty good numbers here. And actually, the numbers you're giving me on the overall percentages are a lot higher than the percentages that he has here for wide open threes this season, which tells you something that these guys, if we're drawing from the same pool, which we should be from a numbers standpoint, it means that all of these guys are shooting better with a hand in their face than they're shooting when they're wide open, because he goes through the numbers on this. Max Strus last year, 48.6% on wide open threes. I don't know what we characterize as a wide open three. Is he drawing that from stats.nba.com perhaps?
I want to say it's like 4 to 6 feet without a defender. I could be wrong, but it's around that range.
Okay, so Strus has gone from 48.6% last year to 27.8% this year, which is much lower than his overall number, as you mentioned, of 38%. Caleb Martin has gone from 42.9% last year to 27.3% this year, which is lower than his overall percentage that you mentioned of 30%. And Gabe Vincent has gone from 35.7% on quote-unquote wide open threes last year to 22.7% this year, which is also lower than his overall number of 30. So again, if we're drawing from the same stat source, which we probably should be, right? I mean, maybe it's a game off. Then that means that all 3 of these guys, they're former two-ways, right? That have all been, we would agree, plus contributors for them this year. I don't think any of them is really disappointed, whether it's Strus, Martin, or Vincent. We haven't pointed to them as being the big issues. All of them are shooting, let's just be honest, like crap when nobody is on them, right? But they're shooting better when they're guarded.
Way to deliver the good news. I mean, this is just getting uglier and uglier.
Well, but here's the thing, Greg, and I'll go pivot to you on this. It's not necessarily bad news, because the way you could look at this is there's no way that they can continue to shoot this poorly unguarded, right? Right?
I mean, that's an optimistic way of looking at it. That's probably the way I'll lean.
But if you're expecting some number to, I hate the term regress to the mean. Everybody says that. Regress to the mean means come down. Progress to the mean. If you're expecting anything to progress to the mean, it would be wide open threes. Like, that's the one thing. Like, that is what you're seeking. But I will tell you this, okay? I remember when Mike Bibby, and nobody wants to remember this, obviously, because Mike Bibby was an abject disaster with the Heat, may have cost him the 2011 NBA Finals even more than LeBron did. I will hold to that take that if Spo had simply played Chalmers in the finals as a starter before Game 6, I think they win that series regardless of what LeBron was doing. I think with Mario starting with Dwayne, they would have been okay the way Dwayne was playing. But I remember when Mike Bibby came and he was complaining that he was getting too many wide open shots, that he wasn't accustomed to getting this many wide open shots, but that playing with LeBron and Dwayne was giving him too many looks. And that was his excuse for shooting. And this is not a joke. 22% from three with the Heat in the postseason. Okay. One of the worst postseason performances of all time for the Heat. Jermaine O'Neal's is right there. And there are some Mashburn ones we can look at and some Eddie Jones ones, but Mike Bibby's is right up there. Okay. Greg, that would be the one thing encouraging from this. Like it can't stay this bad, right? Like Duncan Robinson, with nobody in his face, should not be shooting, in the 20s. It's crazy.
I think part of this too could be that when you get an Eastern Conference Finals run and the kind of the airtime when no other teams are playing, that you end up becoming more of a focused group in terms of that. They were heavily watched and scouted. And so there is an element of that. They're not as unknown as they were last year. You're right that there's no way that they can continue to shoot this bad. I mean, as you cite some numbers that you found on Twitter, I also want to shout out John Jablanca because he brought up the way the Heat's offense just disappears when they lose. This is crazy. So their offensive rating in wins is 121.5. In losses, it's 106. League average is 112. So it's literally like just cratering. And a lot of it has to do with shooting. And I guess you're right. Like, it's tough to even draw the parallel with Bibby because like Jimmy and Bam are like, they're not Bron and Dwayne Wade. You know what I mean? So it's just hard to even make a comparable parallel to this. I just would hope that eventually they start shooting well enough because like this is the whole thing about building around Jimmy and Bam. The shooters have to be making shots like that. Otherwise this whole thing gets fractured and paralyzed. So that's like we start pre-show before we even hit record. I was like, I don't know that I have an answer for this question before we started the episode. And I don't know that we're going to get any closer by the end of it, but you're right. They have nowhere to go but up.
I mean, you would think. I mean, you gave us this stat today. The Heat ranked number 20th or worse in offensive efficiency, effective field goal percentage, 2-point percentage, 3-point percentage, and offensive rebound rate.
Yeah,
like they're bad. Like there's nowhere they've been bad. Like we're through 11 games. They're 4-7. We talk about some of the problems with the defense, the perimeter defense in general. Where would this team be from a scoring perspective if they didn't make every single free throw? That's the other thing. These guys who can't make a shot are first in the league in free throw percentage. I mean, could you imagine if they were 15th in the league in free throw percentage? Their offensive rating would be 92. And look, I don't have the answer to this either. This is an exercise mostly to draw attention to it. I don't know what it is about missing open shots. I don't know if that's psychological. I don't know what that is. Like you have too long to think about it. I mean, we see all the time, like Max Strus comes in and he shoots. Like he's going to take a shot. He doesn't care if a hand's in his face or not in his face. He doesn't seem afraid of anything. Caleb doesn't seem afraid of anything. Gabe Vincent never seems afraid of anything. These are not beta players. We've talked about this. These are alpha role players who've had this issue. Duncan, we've had a different kind of conversation about at times. But these three guys in particular, it should not be cratering like this. We're not even having the Bam 3-point conversation anymore. And I knew we wouldn't. Like that was one of those off-season things. And I knew we'd be 10 games in the season. Bam's not taking threes. He's not going to take threes. Okay. Jimmy is going to take threes when he feels like it, when he wants to prove a point, or when he's lazy. I feel like.
And he's hitting them okay. He's
hitting them fine. But I feel like Jimmy takes them because it's the nights he does not want to draw the contact. He starts with this stuff and sometimes they go and sometimes they don't. Now, Tyler is not on that list. So I don't know what his open threes are, but if he's shooting 38% overall from three when he shot 40% last year, there's not a significant drop off there. So really it's these other guys. And it's also that Duncan's playing fewer minutes than he played before. So there's one fewer shooter on the floor. But when we come back, what I want to get into is how does Spo build around this if it's not working like that? Like, because we talk about having to have two shooters on the floor at all times for space. But if Jimmy and Bam are creating stuff, or even Kyle's creating stuff, or even Tyler's creating stuff, and these guys are just clanking all the time, this is part of, then maybe it's not psychological why they're clanking, but it becomes psychological after that, because as even Jimmy has discussed, when they don't make shots, they don't get back, they don't defend, because there's a frustration that sets in. So we'll talk about that in a second. Before we do, I want to tell you about our 2 product codes here. Well, one is our fantasy code. You know that one, Prize Picks. Use the code 5. A lot of signups over the weekend, so we appreciate that. Use that code FIVE. First thing, you get your initial deposit matched up to $100. It's free money, no rollovers. You can play right away, but also helps us as a network too. Make sure if you're playing Prize Picks, use the code 5, FIVE. Get your initial deposit match. You can download it from the Google Play Store, the Apple App Store, or prizepicks.com. Also, our product code 5RSN. That's the number 5RSN. Use that for 20% off at manscaped.com for all your grooming products, 20% off at Manscaped. Therapistpreferred.com, 25% off 5RSN. And Better Edge, that's our betting partner, peer-to-peer, legal, not offshore. Okay, you're basically betting against your friends. You can find the line you want. It's a great product. And we're running competitions. I'm the pacer this week for NFL. So if you beat me, you're going to win. Okay, that's how this works. And you will likely beat me. So go to Better Edge, use the code 5. That's number 5RSN.
Hey, Becky, what about this beat for your next song?
It's cool, but I'm into faster stuff lately, like Xfinity that gives me beyond gig speeds.
Got it. What about this then?
It sounds powerful, just like Xfinity. Because its supersonic Wi-Fi has 3 times the bandwidth, you can connect hundreds of devices at once.
That's what I call power.
Unbeatable internet from Xfinity. Made to do anything so you can do anything.
Restrictions apply. Actual speeds vary, not guaranteed. Requires compatible Xfinity gateway. Limited quantities available.
AT&T Fiber presents a straightforward moment inspired by straightforward pricing.
And now we just cube the pancetta as such.
So what's on the menu tonight?
This carbonara I found online. It's fire. You gonna love it, Mom.
I hope you hold on to this AT&T Fiber, son. It's nice.
Yeah, you should settle down now that you're a gagillionaire.
Oh, I am. I finally found the one internet I've been looking for my whole life.
So, no more one-year stands?
No, I'm done with all that. With AT&T Fiber, there's no price increase at 12 months.
What about equipment fees?
Nope.
Those were never any good for you.
Exactly. But now everything's completely straightforward.
Well, in the spirit of being straightforward, I never liked any of your old ones.
Me neither. Blah.
Y'all never told me that.
But we're being straightforward now, which feels good, yeah?
Yeah. Now let's get straightforward about that girl he's been seeing.
Straightforward is better. No equipment fees, no data caps, no price increase at 12 months. Live like a gagillionaire with AT&T Fiber. Limited availability in select areas. Visit att.com/hypergig for details.
At Family Dollar, you'll find even more ways to save, like our digital smart coupons, including the Saturday Savings Pass. Explore our app and find additional discounts to stack savings on top of savings. Family Dollar, helping you do more.
Did you know headlights dim over time? You can lose up to 50 feet of visibility before burnout. Stop in to replace yours at Advance Auto Parts, your dependable source for auto lighting today. Snag a new pair of Sylvania Silver Star Ultra bulbs and brighten up those darker fall and winter nights. Switch today, see better tonight. And don't forget to replace your wiper blades and change your oil to ensure you're prepared to hit the road. Only at Advance Auto Parts and participating CarQuest locations. See store for details.
This is how we advance.
All right, so Brady, what does Spo do here? I mean, if they're all shooting poorly, you can't just bench a guy. They don't have any. He only played 8 the other night anyway, so it's not like he's gonna. And by the way, Victor Oladipo and Yurt aren't helping this. So right. So this excuse that again we've allowed some Heat fans and at times we've used. Okay, they don't have their full rotation. I mean, Oladipo will likely make this worse. Okay, because that's not his strength. Okay. And Yurt's not, I know Yurt said that, he's making 80% of his threes in practice. I don't expect him to be bombing away from 3 either. So what do they do?
It's tough because you said about, benching a specific guy, but like you look at what we're talking about, like it's not one guy. Like there's not a sore thumb here where you're like, okay, he's hurting their percentages. It's more of a collective thing. And you brought up before about kind of what the deal is with wide open shots and why it's happening. For me, it feels like rhythm. Like we constantly talk about this team not having rhythm heading in because of the offseason and for other different reasons. And obviously defensively, you're not getting stops. Then you're coming the other direction. This team just doesn't have a lot of juice in general right now, where it's like they don't have that type of extra motivation, not to hit a shot, but like that extra juice in general to be able to be in that type of mindset. So it's, what do they do? I mean, the easy answer is you got to keep shooting. Like you got to keep getting the ball up because that is what this team needs to do. You can't get away from that. Like there's no way about it. When you're talking about a build around Jimmy and Bam, and obviously Tyler can create inside the arc, you need to make threes to win basketball games. You're talking about this team that's generally got a lot of threes up, which they're pretty much at the same number of attempts that they were last year. And I know to start the year, they were having trouble actually getting to that number, like the first 3 or 4 games. They've gotten the shots up, so the process has been there. They're just not hitting them. My other answer would be, which I know this is probably unrealistic when we talk about it, but play in transition a little bit more. Like we're not going to see it because we know where they're going to be at in the pace ranking. But like when your half court offense is just not there, like it doesn't hurt to play into transition a bit more. And I should have got some of the numbers because thinking at the top of my head, we've seen a lot of pull up threes this year. Like in terms of just like running the fast break. I think of last night we saw a couple from or the night before we saw a couple from Kyle and Gabe. Tyler's actually been good from that this year. Like get out in transition to try to create some numbers and some momentum of some kind instead of sitting still and getting these same looks over and over. It just feels like it gives them a little bit of diversity, I guess. But that's not going to fix their shooting numbers in general. Like when looking at the half court stuff, I was looking at some of the fourth quarter numbers because I feel like this stuff's important. The most threes attempted in the fourth quarter for Miami is Max, and at 31 threes, he's shooting 36%. You go down the next guy in line, Gabe Vincent, 15 threes attempted. He's shooting 33%. So he's going 5 for 15. And then I get to Kyle Lowry, and he's 2 of 15 in the fourth quarter this season. Oh. That's not helping anything. Like when you're talking about a guy that's trying to organize your offense, when we talked about, and then all of a sudden Tyler and Jimmy are taking over in the fourth quarter. He slides off ball. You got to hit those shots. And I don't want to have that discussion right now because he actually played well last game. Like his shooting in general looked good and all that. But when we take the 11 games we've seen and put them together, it's kind of a conclusion that you kind of have to come to. And then you have Duncan. He's 5 of 14, which is not bad for fourth quarter, shooting 36%. And then Tyler's 4 of 9 in the fourth quarter, 44%. So nothing's too crazy there other than Kyle's numbers. Like in general, like he's shooting 7 of 24 in general and 29% in fourth quarters. That doesn't help. So it's interesting because you want to tend and lean into the Jimmy Bam stuff. And I know it's funny because we're talking shooting, so we're like not talking Jimmy or Bam at all. But they actually lean into this a bit because just because they're not shooting threes doesn't mean they're not shooting. And I think Bam should get off the hook because he's looked good from the mid-range. Like when he's taking it, it's looked good. When you talk about Jimmy, on the other hand, like the other night, and I didn't want to put too much light on it, but like when you're talking about them being up 10 with 6 minutes left, and we saw a couple of those one-legged step-back jumpers inside the arc, it's like, it's the regular season again. Like it is what it is. You know what you're getting from Jimmy Butler. If it's the regular season or the playoffs, there's a switch that can go off. And I think Heat fans have to live with that. Like that is not something I'm going to harp on.
Yeah, but hold on. I'm going to counter you on that. I'm going to go to Greg on this. I don't think they can live with it anymore. And then this is why we're going to have a Jimmy episode here coming up, because I understand there's a switch, but if the switch comes when they're in the play-in, that's a problem. Like the switch has to go now. Okay, you're 4-7. It has to go now. Like because that frustrated the hell out of me too. I mean, the one, it's almost like he just tries stuff because okay, and he does, but then when they're down, he'll do the work. He'll get in the lane. He'll get the contact. Okay, he'll start to get himself into rhythm. Those shots, if you tracked those shots, okay, when he starts taking those with the lead, and then see what happens to the Heat after he starts to miss those. I'm telling you, every single time it leads to a run on the other side. Every time. Okay, I don't know if it's because the Heat collectively let down because their leader is not doing the things that they're accustomed to him doing, or the other team feels like there's an opening there. But there is. I don't know the metrics on it. Okay, this is eye test, but there seems to be a correlation between him doing that stuff and the team relaxing. It can't happen anymore now. Like because here's the other thing: we know Jimmy's going to take more games off. So they're going to have to play without him. So the games that he does play, I would rather he go full throttle for 65 games, okay, than play 75 and 20 of them are half-assed. Like they're not going to win that way because they lean on him, Greg. So I'd rather he not be on the floor if he's going to be doing that stuff because when he's on the floor, they count on him too much. And if he's doing that stuff, it goes the other way. One other thing before you jump in. We talk about the Lowry numbers, okay? I would like to see what Mario Chalmers used to shoot in the fourth quarter with those off-ball opportunities and not at $28 million a year, okay? I just want Kyle Lowry to be Mario Chalmers in the fourth. Can we get that? Can we get that? Because that guy, I'm telling you, Never shot 2 of 15 in the fourth quarter over any prolonged stretch. Okay. We could do eye tests or metrics for all the criticisms of Rio and all the rest of that stuff. When LeBron and Dwayne look to him at those, in those kind of situations, I bet you he made those shots at a 35 to 40% clip. Okay. And not at $28 million. I'm sorry. Look, we're at that point. They're 4-7. Okay. Their highest paid player. And you're right. Bam does get off the hook here. The other two guys, Kyle and Jimmy on this, do not.
And this is the other thing. Like, Jimmy is shooting more threes than he's shot since he was in Philly, like Philly and Minnesota, like 2018. So he's relying on that more than ever. Luckily, he's shooting 37.5%. Like, think about if he was also down in the 30s. But if you look at every release valve, we talk about Jimmy and Bam and an offense built around them. This is like about Max, who's shooting okay. Like, it's all, I mean, I guess at 38%, if I'm just looking at it high level, that's fine. But when you have Gabe, Caleb, Kyle, and Duncan all just like literally, they're not threats at the moment. Gabe has had moments here or there, but overall he hasn't shot well. I just don't know that you can overcome that, because like, you can't have Jimmy be one of your highest percentage 3-point shooters. Like, what are we talking about here? And like, functionally, because Dwayne Dedmon doesn't really count, he's essentially like their best 3-point shooter. And that's just not the way that this is going to work. So to me, I don't know what the answer is, but you're right. Like, Kyle, there are moments where I feel like it would be incumbent on him, considering how much he was paid, to step up on offense and take over a little bit more. And we just haven't seen enough of it yet, but maybe it's turning around. Recently, he's looked better. I'm trying to give him credit because I'm frustrated.
I want to add in, when you were talking about Jimmy's percentage, he's shooting 40% on catch and shoot threes to that point. Like, I think 5 of the ones he missed were like pull ups. So it kind of declined that even more. But Ethan, I want to give you a counter to your counter, because you brought up Jimmy, I guess, with the shots. The reason I feel like I think we're looking too much into it, and the reason that's why I say it, is I think there's recency bias in the last game, because I think that's the 1 out of the 11 games we've seen it. So like, I totally get it from that perspective, but like, he hasn't even shot that many bad mid-range jumpers in general when I think about the first 10 games. So if it continues, I think it's problematic. But I just feel like, in terms of all 11 games together, I guess we just haven't seen it enough to become problematic, especially late in the fourth. Because I feel like he's been decent for them late in the fourth. Like, he had the big shot against Golden State, and he had decent moments where he hasn't been out of character, I'll say. But once it gets to that point and he gets out of his game, it's just going to throw everything off.
No, I see that. But I think you can sense a tone change with me. We're at the point of the year where their top guys need to carry them out of the mud here. Okay. This is Shawshank Redemption. Okay. They're going through a river of bleep. They got to get to the other side. All right. Andy Dufresne, whatever it is you want to say. They need to do that now. Their core 4. Okay. Their core 4, the guys who got paid. Okay. Jimmy, Bam, Duncan, and excuse me. Well, Duncan's the 5th, but I'm not going there. Jimmy, Bam, Kyle, and Tyler. Okay. They need to lead. I mean, we can talk about the role players, and again, Max, Caleb, and Gabe with their numbers, cratering on the open shots. But again, we all agree, I think, right, that overall the 3 of them have been fine, right? Roles change, Max's role change, Caleb's role change. I think we all agree maybe Gabe should have a bigger role, whatever it is. But the 3 of them have not been the problem. I mean, at times this open shooting has been a problem, but I'm saying overall, the guys who are getting paid on this roster, the front end of this roster, if you're going to compete with the great teams in this league, those guys need to play at a high level. And you cannot have a guy, your starting point guard, shooting 2 for 15 from 3 in the fourth quarter. Okay. Because you can get Ish Smith to shoot 4 of 12. I mean, I'm just being serious. Like, right. Okay. And
Drew Smith.
Against the Heat, he would shoot 12 of 12. But even with Jimmy, okay, and it's not the 3-point shooting I'm talking about, but it's just you can't have what you had in the last game, because it does go to all the other players here. I'm not dissatisfied with Jimmy's overall performance this year. I'm just saying they need to be better than they've been, like, to get them out of this. Like, you have like that. Look, when Pat when the Heat were having troubles during Riley's early years, he would turn to Zoe and Tim and say, "Get us out of this."
Yep.
get us out of this, okay? We're looking at you, okay? Or Spo, would look during the Big Three era, okay? Dwayne and LeBron and Chris, get us out of this, okay? We're not looking to Shane Battier to shoot us out of this. You guys get us out of this. Those Big Three teams, they went through shooting slumps. Ray couldn't make a shot on the road for like an entire season. This is Ray Allen, one of the 5 greatest shooters in NBA history. Shane went through terrible slumps. Mike Miller would go through slumps when he then would get benched and then he would get hurt. Okay. But so look, those guys were more accomplished than the Heat's role guys. Okay. Those guys were top. I mean, you're talking about Shane Battier, Ray Allen. You're talking about guys who were elite college players who were top 10 picks. Okay. If you're counting on your former two ways to get you out of this with your shooting, okay, it's got to be the other way. Their quote unquote stars need to get them out of this. And I think then that will feed to the role players who will start shooting the ball better. I think they give the role players confidence. It can't be the other way around. Right.
The NBA champion needs to step up.
That's what it is to me.
And I just want to throw in the reason I think that the guys you're talking about deserve more emphasis here is because I'll tie this back to the thing I said earlier. How they've gone from 5th to 25th in paint touches. That's important here. Like when you're talking about these guys need to get them through this, these guys need to force the looks. Like they have to be the guys that are getting inside the paint. Jimmy, if he's playing, needs to be getting inside the lane consistently to get these guys looks. Obviously, Bam needs to be inside the lane to get these guys looks. Tyler and Kyle are part of that core 4 that you mentioned, are 2 guys that can really generate paint touches when they're actually doing it. That's what needs to happen here because that's what gets the role players going.
But isn't that laziness? I mean, but doesn't that get back to one of the points we've talked about here, which is that this team doesn't seem engaged because it's easier, okay, for whether it's, and I'm not singling out one person here, but I'm just saying for all these guys, it's easier for Kyle and Tyler if they can't get the screen they need to get in the lane to just chuck something up or pound the hell out of the ball, okay? Or in Tyler's case, or in Kyle's case, to just give it up, right? Hot potato it, okay? It's easier to do that than it is to try to get into the lane and create for somebody else. And for all the discussion and it's easier for Jimmy to shoot a step back when they're up 10 instead of doing what he did to get them up 10, which is get in the paint and create opportunities for other people. And look, the Bam conversation, this is why I don't want to have it anymore. I don't want to have this conversation about Bam shooting threes. It is not his responsibility to shoot threes for this team to be effective. It's his responsibility to be a terror on defense and take advantage of mismatches on offense and create opportunities with again, his playmaking, but also I know he's not a great post player. I understand that, but getting in the paint occasionally and force teams to react to him. The 4 of those guys need to do this. I'm even looking at these. I'm not going to pin this on Max, Gabe, and Caleb. I'm sorry. It's not their responsibility to dig them out of this. Greg, am I wrong before we close?
You know who's shooting the same 3-point percentage as Kyle Lowry? Russell Westbrook. I mean, like he's like a running joke on the internet with his 3-point shooting, and they're both shooting 35%. Like, what is happening right now? Look, it's not on those other guys.
No, it's not.
To close here. Yes.
It's not. And it's not on Vic either when he comes back. That's not the role they're expecting from him whenever it is that he does return. He will help with the paint touches, you would hope. He will help with creation and the rim pressure and all the things that we talk about and possibly spraying the ball out to these shooters. But he needs to start with their core guys. This is gonna be a consistent theme for me. You cannot rely on I don't care how effective you've been at mining them, developing them, how well they've reacted to it. They're not the guys who are carrying the flag for your franchise right now. Their core 4 need to be better individually, collectively, and late. Okay, those 3 things that'll create opportunities for other people. All right, thanks to our sponsors, c-armstaffing.com. Prize Picks, Therapist Preferred, Better Edge, and Manscaped. We appreciate all of them. We'll be back on Thursday. I will be at the game Thursday night. We're not getting a monsoon, it doesn't appear. So they are playing the game Thursday night and Saturday night. So I'll be there. I believe Brady will be as well. We'll have coverage from the arena. Have a good night, everybody.
Thank you for listening to the 5 on the Floor on the 5 Regional Sports Network.
Hey, Becky, what about this beat for your next song?
It's cool, but I'm into faster stuff lately, like Xfinity that gives me beyond gig speeds.
Got it. What about this then?
It sounds powerful, just like Xfinity. Because its supersonic Wi-Fi has 3 times the bandwidth, you can connect hundreds of devices at once.
That's what I call power.
Unbeatable internet from Xfinity. Made to do anything so you can do anything.
Restrictions apply. Actual speeds vary, not guaranteed. Requires compatible Xfinity gateway. Limited quantities available.
Celebrate the most wonderful time of the year with an escape to the Florida Keys. Postcard Inn Beach Resort and Marina has something for everyone, no matter what your traditions are. Skip the cooking and cleaning and enjoy a holiday feast at our Isla Mirada restaurants. With adventures like scuba diving, snorkeling, or relaxing on the beach, Postcard Inn is sure to make your holiday memorable. Start a new holiday tradition at the Postcard Inn Beach Resort and Marina. Book your escape today at holidayisle.com.